Good morning, all. Today, my name is Sujesh Desai. I'm the Technical Director for TRG, and today we're going to discuss the data-driven decision-making and how your organization can leverage the power of data. Before we start, the webinar is being recorded and will be available after the session. If you need to contact us during the webinar, feel free to use the chat and also the hand gestures as well. Towards the end of the webinar, there'll be a 15-minute questions and answers session as well. So during the webinar, feel free to post some questions into the chat and we'll cover them off as we go through the seminar. Any problems, just use the raise hand or the chat. There's a moderator also available. So we're going to start off with a quick poll just to set the scene, and for those that are sort of starting their journey on data-driven decision-making, BI analytics as well, to see where the audience is currently sort of positioned. So the poll question today is, with regards to data-driven decision-making, does your organization have reporting and BI capabilities that can tell you what happened, why did it happen, what happened, and how we're going to make it happen? So these are the questions that we're going to be running through and looking through today. So as the poll takes place, I'll give 15 minutes or so and we'll revisit the questions and answers to the poll. So data-driven decision making. So let's take a look at what this entails. It's the ability to be able to go from a hypothesis to a validation in minutes using all your data. So spend less time tuning your applications, stitching services together. I think we've all been there in our organizations where we've had to grab data from multiple Excels, try and get them to work together, join columns manually, take out data, look at duplication. All that's time consuming, and you need the decision to be made a lot quicker. By the time you get that visualization, it's taken a lengthy period of time, and you're also having to repeat that process every time the data sets change. So the idea of being able to drive decisions from data stems from the ability to be able to have that data in a data set or multiple data sets that can quickly be looked at, analyzed, and help you to make that decision. So developing these data-driven platforms really are there to help you to get the data into one place, and the key feature there is all your data, because what we tend to find is that a lot of data in most organizations starts off with it being in silo, and that comes from potentially where the applications run and how they run, and also how departments run as well. So really, to push this data-driven decision making, we really need to have a look at how we can get data to work together on that single source of truth, and then be able to make decisions a lot quicker. All businesses today are data-driven businesses. So from your corner shop who uses an online accounting package and stock controls to the largest retailers that run through the internet, all run on data. It's the key feature there is how you grow that business and how you can take advantage of some of the data is the analytics that you run from that data. So we've had a lot of customers come to us in the past and say, we've been gathering data for 10, 15 years. How can we make that valuable now? How can we make decisions based on that data? And sometimes it turns out that that data that they've been collecting isn't the right data. It's not the data that's going to help drive decisions. And it just becomes a cost center to the business when you gather data and you don't have that full vision or that platform around how you would use that data to make the decisions. So it's really key to be able to have a model which allows you to do data-driven decision making is to make sure that you have the data and the data sets all unified and working together, but also have an analytical platform that will help you to drive these decisions as well. So data-driven decisions also are no longer in running silo. They're no longer related to just one person in your organization. Your data is only one piece of the puzzle, as it says there. Being able to articulate your data insights to your organization is where the real value is. So data literacy is a kind of a new word or new sort of ethos that is coming across a lot of organizations that we're seeing. It's a new sort of culture. So data literacy is, we need to be able to share this data. You need to be able to not rely on individuals no longer that understand data, but make sure that it's an organization-wide practice. Because when you start sharing that data and combining it with some self-service tools, individuals become a lot more empowered, and that's when you can build tighter teams and you can see organizations become stronger. We've seen in a number of our clients where we've started to take this data, started to take the data into a more self-service platform. So people can go there and have a look at a report that has detail and information from different departments, from external data, and really be able to get a true picture of what the business is doing as a whole, but how their department, their function, their process is going to make a change to the organization. And it's that visibility that whether you're a small organization, a large and medium organization is required in order to be able to make these decisions from data, be able to grow your business from these the data that you've been collecting and the analysis that you're providing. So it's taken a shift in quite a lot of our organizations from the data being the data literacy and the understanding of data and how data works from individuals or a small team really across the whole organization. There's many people probably on this call or listening to this webinar that also have already tried and done Power BI reports of visualizations, but mostly without having a common data platform that's done still within the silo data sets or your own data sets. So this idea of being able to make decisions quickly and fast all stem from being able to have that uniform data set. Single source of truth is also sort of how it's also referenced to as well. So you've all reporting and coming in from the same data. And what that sort of helps to stem is the ability to be able to take a common process or the ability to take a common insight and be able to drive some real decisions around it. Most decisions in the business stem from data, but it's just how quick you can get that decision making process. And when you start collecting data and putting it into a single platform or a single source of truth, whether it's in a data warehouse or whether it's just a combination of data sets, governance comes into this a lot, because what you're doing is you're opening the data sets up and you've got to make sure that you keep the same security, the same role-based access to the data. So yes, you could have one Power BI visualization, but you've got to make sure that the individuals that are empowered to be able to go and build these or use them still have that security around it to make sure that they don't see data that they shouldn't, and drill down further into data that they don't have access to. So when building a data platform, it's key that the security around access of the data, but also the governance of the data is kept running at all times. And some of the technology that we use with Microsoft and Azure allows you to bake that in right from the offset. So when you're collecting that data, every individual piece of data you're collecting comes with security, comes with the governance, because as it sort of states there, that it's not about making the right decision all the time, it's about making them in the right way. So as you start using a lot more analytics, there'll be further seminars around how you can empower your data platform with machine learning. There's a lot of bias and governance that needs to be looked at in a different way to what governance would be looked at in terms of a traditional decision-making model. So we ran a poll at the beginning of the session, and really it was just to see where do you sit, or where does your organization sit on this curve. So we kind of driving the value up of an organization, but as you do that with any technology or any platform, you sort of increase the difficulty as well. But what you're moving across onto is optimization and having that ability to do different types of analysis on your data set. So if you at the moment, if you sit out, you can be able to see and tell what happened. You're sitting really at the descriptive analysis stage. So you're collecting information and you're really on the path of sort of hindsight. So again, we've seen this in organizations where, you know, you have that data there, and you can say, in hindsight, well, if we didn't buy X amount of product, or if we moved the product using a different system or different career, we would have been able to sell this much more, and so forth. So there's this descriptive analysis piece, which a lot of organizations which come to IG sit around these two spaces here, and they'll be able to drill down into data and say, why did it happen? So that's your diagnostic analysis. So why did a system fail? But the issue there again is that typically now, as the world's moving fast and with all the different technologies, it's difficult to be able to pinpoint a single place to go and look at why something failed. So, and that could be from any application set. So if an application failed, generally it's not just the old way of going having looking at that application, the logs there, and finding out why it's failed. It's so intertwined with other processes in the business, and data is moving between lots of different systems as well. So that even the ability to be able to know why did it happen in a quicker and faster time gives you that bit more value as well. So you can see the curve going up. Typical examples of that is that the quicker you can resolve some of these issues, it may help further along the chain, and also keep the business moving. Then you move up to sort of the insight phase. So what will happen? So this is the predictive analysis. So this is having a look at when we start pushing up to that graph and that curve, is that can we try and look at our data sets and predict what will happen? So we've collected a number of data, descriptive type of data, diagnostic data. Now, can we predict using that data sets and using those data sets and some of the technology in Microsoft around Cortana Intelligence and machine learning pipelines? Can we start looking at what will happen? So we know that this is what good looks like. If something changes in that scenario, what will happen? And then you can start looking at some predictive analysis to say, if this changes, or if we stop doing this, this is the consequences. And some could be positive and some could be negative, but again, you've got the ability to make those decisions based on data, rather than sort of say, well, yes, let's change this process because it may be cost efficient, but you won't have the sort of foresight or the insight to sort of see what would that mean going downstream. Does that affect other processes? Does that mean changing that one piece may not visually or within the business seem like a big change, but what does it do to the actual processes that the whole business is running? So it's combining the descriptive and the diagnostic to be able to give you some of the predictive analysis, and then using the same models and really starting to look at optimizing the business processes that you're running, the products that you're selling. Is going into the prescriptive analysis. So how can we make it happen? So if you're already in this space at the moment, you're running whether it's a traditional or modern data warehouse, but you're running some sort of data warehouse, some sort of analysis services that are already helping you to understand how you can make processes better. And again, all stems from the data that you've collected. So we have organizations that start collecting data very late into their journey, which is still valuable. As I mentioned earlier on, there's some organizations that we've come across that have collected data from years ago, but it's not the right type of data sets that they're retaining. It's not the right transformation, or the the work is done on those data sets is not what's going to help drive you to move from informational data to optimizational data and decisions as well. So TRG can really help you to move from each of these areas, and some of those require technology, some of those are just process and people and culture as well, because referring back to the previous slide, data literacy and the ability to be able to understand data, share it, is the key bit, because to empower the teams, the individuals, you need to be able to give them self-service data, and you need to be able to do that with the governance, security and compliance. And you'll see smaller teams starting to really rapidly excel to this journey, and then the organization as a whole will start moving across this as well. And that's the area that we specialize in that can help you to start that journey wherever you fit in the curve at the moment. So organizations that we've seen that can harness this culture of having a single source of truth of data, being able to do some analytics on there and then also move to do the real-time analytics, we've seen them that they can outperform other organizations within the same industry or the same sector as well. To be able to do this, and the ethos of all the other sides is that you do need to have certain technology in place and then also certain processes and people in place as well. So and we'll cover each of those in different seminars. In this one, we're going to have a quick look at the technology side of it. So data warehousing has been around since the 1980s, the concept of a data warehouse. Now, as we're moving through the technology, a lot of other technology that's been around since then, like mainframes and other types of computers and stuff, has sort of fallen away. But the concept and the ethos of a data warehouse still serves its purpose in the modern world. Yes, it's transformed into a much more automated machine learning ability to be able to do a lot more with data sets, be able to do ETL, so extract, transform, and load processes a lot more quicker, faster. But the concept of being able to grab data from all different types of sources in all different types of formats and put them into a central location where they can then be further analyzed or be manipulated in order to be able to provide the right type of data sets that you need. So that could be running some machine learning on them to enhance and cleanse the data. It could be the ability to be able to go out and get external data source that you're not collecting or don't have within your organization, and that could be just stuff like weather. You may want to go and collect those because that has an issue, has a bearing on how your products are sold. So you can start overlaying the data with that. You can go and overlay public data that's available, whether it's some products that you're selling to households, and you want to know what the incomes are, what the family types that are living in those postcode areas. You, particularly as an organization, won't be collecting that data, but you can enrich your data by ingesting that type of data into a data warehouse and then adding that to your data sets. So the concept of a data warehouse still exists. In Microsoft and Azure, we help to develop and deploy a modern data warehouse, which is built on Azure technology and Microsoft Azure Synapse services and analysis services. You then need to have, as we mentioned earlier, if you just have the data warehouse, you have a lot of data that's sitting in a data lake or in some sort of storage, and it will eventually start becoming a cost center or a cost to the business, because the more data you pile up there and the less analytics that you can run from that data, the less value you're going to get from that data. So to be able to leverage reporting and insights and all the stuff that we've mentioned earlier on in this webinar, you do need to have an analytical platform. So Power BI sits on top of a data warehouse and allows you to really drill into the data that you've created. And also Power BI allows you to sort of do some of those data enrichment processes within Power BI. So that could be an option for self-service, or you can use Azure Databricks, which is a open source technology that Microsoft has placed into the Azure Fabric to be able to run notebooks that allow you to do some calculations and some transformation on your data. And then finally, the real-time analytics, which is really key to get insights. So this is, you can collect data in a traditional data warehouse, and you create cubes and you create your own sort of data sets and so forth. But that's, again, with data that's coming in at periodic times. Now, as we're moving through the times, we need to be able to do real-time analytics on data that's coming in to make a difference. So if you know that you only have a small window of selling your product, so it could be tickets for a concert, you really want to look at the real-time analytics on those. So quick changes that you can make and make those decisions, as we said right earlier on data rather than just a guess. And as I say, most organizations don't make them on the guess, they make them on data, but it's sometimes too late, or as we looked at that curve, it's done in hindsight. So if you're selling tickets for a concert, you're getting real-time streaming data, you're analyzing that data, and you know that, right, okay, Thursday is a really good day, Wednesday isn't. Can we change the schedules? Can we change the pricing? Can we have a 2-for-1 offer? Can we extend the show? All those type of stuff can be made really quickly and put back into the system to be able to really get advantages from the insights of your data. So the platform that builds all of this, and this is just the one sort of technical bit towards it, is we really specialize in helping you to build that platform. So that platform at a holistic level is based on Microsoft Azure Synapse Analytics Service, Databricks, Azure Data Factory, and then some Power BI and analytics services. So really what we're looking at here is just the ability to ingest data from any sort of format. So we can ingest data from line of business application. So this could just be straight data from a CRM, from a finance system. The data could already be exist in a structured way in databases, but we're not. It could be an Oracle database, it could be a SQL database, it could be a Postgres database. We have the ability to use Azure Data Factory, which is an orchestration tool to ingest that data in. We then have logs and streams of data that you want to collect. So that's your diagnostic data. You have media, so that could be Twitter feeds, Google reviews, website reviews that we want to ingest into, and then file data. So this is your traditional file structured data. So there's options around the data factory to ingest those, and as you're ingesting them, some of them you may want to, as we mentioned earlier, run some cleansing optimization around those. So your Databricks fits nicely into that model, which allows you to run some notebooks, which will allow you to either do some joining of data. It will allow you to cleanse that data, map that data out before you use it. And as I say, it's a repetitive process, so it's something that it learns, and you don't have to keep revisiting this. So every time that data comes in, it will fix that data. So simple common stuff as if data is coming in from one system and it uses dial assist, so it has the +44, and another system doesn't have that and has zeros. When you try and do a match, it will always fail, but this way you can cleanse that data and have a uniform data set of having dial assist, and it does that on its own, so you don't have to change the system itself. And to more complex areas around Databricks, where you can start joining different tables of different applications to get you the data set that you want, and that the organization requires for reporting, for KPI, and for insights. And then you've got the file data, which could just go straight into the Azure Data Lake if it doesn't need any manipulation. It all gets then stored into the Azure Synapse Analytics service and services. So this is a SQL-based data warehouse, but also has an analysis services built into it as well. And then you can serve up data sets to individuals, to teams. As we say, keep the compliance and the governance stays, the security stays as well. So as that all the data has been brought in from the left-hand side, it all stays compliant within the Azure Data Lake using role-based access. And then you can serve this up through Power BI for visualization, but also push it back out into other business services. So we have a lot of clients that are potentially have gone through an acquisition or are expanding and need to change a key line of business application, and it's the data taking it out from that application and moving it to another. How do you do that? Do you use different tools? Do you do a cut over period? So really you could gather all that information within your data warehouse, manipulate it to match the new business service that you want to move to, and then push the data into that new business service. So a lot of operational advantages of collecting and cleansing data, as well as just the data-driven part that we're discussing in this seminar as well. So this gives a very high over level view of what a modern data warehouse looks like and how it can be formed. So once we get to this, once we have all the data into the modern data warehouse, we need to find a way of creating a level playing field when it comes to be able to give the organization the reporting and the data that's required. So dashboards are there to provide a view of how departments are performing. Ad hoc reporting allows you to dive into the data and find answers quickly and efficiently, going back to the ethos of being able to look at a hypothesis and get to a validation within minutes rather than days. And then the advanced visualization, which is, to get that and illustrate a story that's based on data to tell you that this is what will happen. So start going right up that curve and optimizing and predicting um, uh, predicting outcomes based on the data. One key thing when you're trying to achieve dashboards, reporting, and these and move up that curve is that you have to make sure that the data isn't siloed, isn't underutilized, and is available but provides the insights too slow. So this is going back to the ability that yes, you might have data that you're sort of, as we see with a lot of organizations, Frankensteining together by joining a number of Excel spreadsheets or getting outputs from systems and then adding them to another spreadsheet or doing lookups and so forth. So really to speed all of that up, we need to be able to get into that data warehouse sort of concept of being able to have all the data in a single place. And what we've seen with organizations when they do start looking at leveling their playing field with data is that we start by unifying all your data. So that is getting it into a data lake or some sort of storage so that all the data is there and everyone's looking at the same data. So whether you're reporting from a finance perspective, from a forecasting perspective, from a board perspective, you're all using the same data down to the individual team member who's got to run that or that part of the process or run that department is still using that same data set. So really key to get your data in, cleansed and available so that everyone is using that same data set, and that leads on to that one source of truth, which is really important, and that's been the ethos for data warehousing, as I say, from the 80s. That hasn't changed. What's changed is the amount of data that's coming in, the amount of data that we can gather, and as I say, it could be data that's not within your own organization and is external as well that we can add onto data. But again, rather than individuals going out and sourcing that data and it being different, we can have one sort of source of truth. And once you get to that, you can start looking at some of the journeys that we've discussed, which is the insights on the fly, the ability to be able to look at data and data sets and be able to really get some decisions quicker and faster, because as I say, everyone is aware that all decisions lead back to some sort of data set where they've originated from. But it's just that time that it takes, and the processes that are behind there as well. So once you get to this, it's achievable using BI tools and the Azure Modern Data Warehouse, which was a slide further up, which will sort of get you to that position. So we've just got a couple of, before we sort of go into the questions, we've just got a couple of case studies where we've worked with clients, and they stem from the ethos of what we've discussed in the slides above. So the ability to be able to analyze data coming in from multiple sources. So we've got a leading private healthcare organization that requires a single source of truth from all their clinical systems to provide better patient care. That was a sort of the statement that they came. So they have a number of different healthcare that they provide, but they all run off different systems but have the same patients within those systems. So it's a very much siloed system. So you will go get care for one from a pharmacist or from a dental practice, but they'll all be separately maintained in their own systems. So the client required a central system where they can really get insights into what they can do to better the patient care, but also offer them other services that they're potentially not utilizing or don't know that the private healthcare offers. So Azure Data Factory provided the orchestration to go and extract all the data from these multiple systems, um, load them into Azure Data Lake, where it then went and formed a uniform data set using JSON technology and JSON files, which then can be manipulated further. And in this example, there was Power BI and dashboarding, but really the key part was to be able to push that data back into business systems. So the original systems where we were driving those extractions from had data put back in, which showed them that this patient also has a record of X, Y, and Z in here. So really helped to streamline their processes, gave the patient better care, but also gave the doctors and nurses the insight straight away into that patient without having to go and log on to a different system to find that out, or without having to use paper to be able to go and find out any other medical conditions or histories around that patient. We then had companies that wanted to start looking at how they can leverage the data that they've collected, transformed, but really be able to get some reporting and some advanced sort of KPI reporting. So we had a leading recruitment company that required better analysis on how teams are performing within the sectors of their company. So was it the team performing better because of they had better opportunities coming in, they had better way of advertising? Did they have, was it purely down to just the number of calls the individuals were making in that team? Was it down to the actual employee itself that helped them drive the actual recruitment as well? So all these data existed. So whether they were through telephone conversations, whether they were through um, feedback forms, whether they were through the how long a person has served once they started their job. So all this was available, but just all in different um, systems and siloed off and really underutilized, because it's that type of data that then helped them to create self-service insight dashboards and stories as well, which really showed them how they can keep and retain their recruitment consultants and really get them to perform and share those ideas between the teams. And finally, we've got separate seminars on this, but IoT devices are becoming a lot more valuable out for organizations, whether it's just sensors that are collecting information and data, or whether it's for IoT services that are taking a individual or an organization on a full journey. So these sensors do produce large amounts of data, and they need to be streamed and actioned in real time. So we've got an organization that has wearable devices, and really the idea behind that is to collect data as every minute, and then be able to give them some actionable insights as quick as possible. Sometimes, as we say, the data will come in and doesn't need any action. So part of the battle when you're dealing with large streaming data from sensors is to be able to run through that data quickly and fast to say if it's the normal data sets that we expect, then move on, and if it's not, then we need to give them some sort of actionable insights using an event hub or using some sort of machine learning pipelines that will help them to say this is going to go wrong. We either need to do X, Y, and Z to the system. So again, it's the starting point of being able to use data in your organization comes from the key bits that we've discussed, which is getting a unified source of truth of data. But once you've got that, it will just become a cost and a burden to the company if you don't start using the analytics and drive the insights from them. So you need to have a vision of what is going to drive that and get you to get moved from there, sort of collecting the information part of the journey, right all the way up to the optimization part of the journey. And this is where, again, we TRG have a number of options that can help with this. We have just some general chats that you can contact us about further on after this webinar, and my team to speak about how data analytics and how Power BI and Azure can help you really move further in some of the stuff that we've discussed today. So we have a campaign out there on our website called Octopus that will really help you to start driving your data analytics campaign. You can also download an e-guide as well, and this webinar will be available. And finally, you can always contact any of myself or my team in order to be able to get some more insights into what we're doing. So we're just going to use the sort of last 10 minutes or 5 minutes of the seminar just to see if there's any questions now, or as I say, feel free to send questions through to through the website or directly to myself. So we've had one question just come in, which was to say, with the information that we've covered in the slides, how can we make advantage of the products that we're currently selling, and how can the data that we're gathering help us? So I think the question is around what we've just discussed there is that how can some of the technology that we've just mentioned help you to drive those those data insights and make your products faster and your processes better. And I guess a lot of it comes down to being able to have that single sort of source of truth of that data, be able to work out the insights of that data. So why is something selling better in one region than another? Um, is that down to pure individuals? Is that down to marketing in that region? Is that down to the time of when the product was launched? So all of these key bits and questions all relate back to some sort of data entry somewhere that will be able to help you find that information. And as we say, the ethos of this whole seminar is that that can be done, but it's the time that it takes to gather all that information. Could be minutes, could be hours, could be days, and generally it's the latter. It's days. So if you could have all this information already available because you're constantly collecting it, you're constantly transforming it, you're constantly looking at that data, then you'll be able to say straight away, well, that region can sell a product better because of X, Y, and Z. Now, does that then mean you concentrate on moving some or introducing some of those processes into different regions? So there's a lot that can take place. There's also an area of the data warehouse, the machine learning that helps with processes that you don't have to double entry into systems, you don't have to create new processes. You can start automating a lot of the processes that you're running within the business as well. And that frees up the time for those individuals to focus more on the BI, the analytics, creating the dashboards, creating the insights, being able to get them the information that they require quicker and faster. Just got a couple of minutes left. We've had one more in, which is how can we use data to redesign products and business models? So I guess again, this is part of what we sort of touched on in most of the slides, which is around the ability to be able to have a look at a product that you're currently selling, using, offering as a service, and looking at business models and then mapping that back to the data that you've gathered around that product. As I say, individuals will be able to sort of say, based on their experience, based on their knowledge, that this is what we need to do in order to increase productivity for this product or increase sales for this product. When you start having the backing of the data to be able to make a decision to say, yes, we need to change this in the product to be able to make it more profitable, to make it sell faster or quicker. And you can back that up with data that potentially you don't have within your department or within your knowledge or your skill sets, but have within the organization, is where you can really start seeing that change and helping to drive that change. And that, as we say, comes from that data literacy. You can't have just individuals no longer in organizations that understand the power of data and how it's used. It needs to be spread across everyone, and create these self-service tools using Power BI so they can actually go grab these insights and start using those. So that brings us to the end of the session. I'd like to say thanks for everyone that joined, and if you require further information around anything that we spoke about today, please feel to reach out to myself or the TRG team, and they'll go through some of the options that we discussed in detail.